Labour Party members who are being asked to vote for you should know who's bankrolling your campaign.
That is why the Labour Party set up those rules.
But you won't tell us. The other
rules.
candidates in this contest have published who is bankrolling their campaign. You seem to be hiding behind this process. Why won't you simply tell us tonight who are your 5 biggest donors?
We can reveal that Keir Starmer's leadership campaign was actually bankrolled by arch-Israel lobbyist Trevor Chin. Chin is the president of one of Israel's national institutions, the UJIA, which funnels money into settlements and has even been found to bring students from this country on trips to stay in illegal settlements in the West Bank. Trevor Chin is also on the executive board of BICOM, Israel's largest lobby group in this country, which is the parent organization of Luke Akehurst's We Believe in Israel. BICOM today is currently headed by Richard Pater, who is a reserve in the Israeli military and formerly was employed by the Israeli Prime Minister's office. It is from there that Luke Akehurst has launched his own Israel lobby group. Luke Akehurst was a consultant for arms firm Finmeccanica, now known as Leonardo, which has billions of pounds worth of deals with the Israeli military. Luke Akehurst was mentioned by Israeli political officer at the embassy, Shai Massoud, in the Al Jazeera documentary, The Lobby.
So Luke Akehurst is the director of We Believe in Israel. He's one of the best in the inside, in all the party. Seriously, there's not a lot of people like him.
This individual could very well be a minister of state very soon. We Believe in Israel, Akehurst's project, which as Shai Massoud mentions, shares an office with BICOM, has admitted to having a range of stakeholders which include the Israeli embassy. This organization that Akehurst runs sought to remove my music from Spotify. The campaign manager at We Believe in Israel at the time was Rachel Blaine. Today, Rachel Blaine is the director of public affairs at the Conservative Friends of Israel. When Conservative MP Alan Duncan stood to be selected as the foreign minister, the Conservative Friends of Israel militated against him. In fact, Duncan even went so far as saying the Conservative Friends of Israel think they control the Foreign Office, and they probably do.
I was offered the job of foreign minister, implicitly to be in charge of the Middle East. And before it was even announced, the top apparatus of the Conservative Friends of Israel used their influence in number 10 and the Foreign Office to lobby to stop me getting it, quite simply because they don't approve of my views on Palestine. The way in which forces lobbied to stop me is evidence of the fact that this is a very, very improper relationship, and that Jewish support, which we welcome and encourage, should be decoupled from representation within UK politics of funding allied to the interests of another country.
So Luke Akehurst employed somebody who went on to work for the Conservative Party's Israel lobby group at the same time as he was on the NEC of the Labour Party. Before working for We Believe in Israel and managing the campaign against me, Rachel Blaine was public affairs intern at the Board of Deputies. Throughout the Corbyn years, the Board of Deputies were inescapable. They did everything they could to bring down Jeremy Corbyn. But something that went unnoticed was the 2020 Trustees Report by the Board of Deputies. In it, and I quote, the Board of Deputies states it has a close working relationship with the Israeli embassy and strengthened links with the IDF spokesman's department and the Ministry of Strategic Affairs. Interestingly, Rachel Blaine notes on her LinkedIn account that she worked at an unnamed international embassy in London. Prior to that, Blaine had worked for the Zionist Federation, where she quote-unquote created dossiers to counter anti-Israel activity. The march of the Labour Party deeper and deeper into the clutches of the Israel lobby continued. And under Starmer's leadership, the Labour Party accepted a £5 million donation from Israel lobbyist Gary Lubner. Gary Lubner also simultaneously a key funder to the UJIA. Another interesting aspect of this capture of the Labour Party is the case of Asaf Kaplan, an individual who emerged out of Unit 8200 in the Israeli military. It monitors Palestinian communications and uses that information to blackmail them into becoming collaborators. Now, why would Keir Starmer employ Asaf Kaplan from Unit 8200 in the Labour Party office to carry out quote-unquote social listening? Ultimately, the Labour Party is a criminal conspiracy against its membership, and even the information that I've relayed in this video is merely the tip of the iceberg. How would it sound if I was to say that somebody simultaneously sits in the British House of Lords at the same time as being an employee of the Israeli government? John Hutton was the Defense Secretary under Blair during the occupations of Iraq and Afghanistan. Following his time in government, John Hutton went on to become an advisor for the largest arms company in the world, Lockheed Martin. Today, John Hutton is a director of Pearson Engineering, which is owned by Rafael, an Israeli state-owned arms company. So you have somebody sitting in the House of Lords for the Labour Party at the same time as being an employee of the Israeli government. But the story of where we are today with Keir Starmer can actually be traced to the Blair era. It is a little known fact that Israel lobbyists had a key role in not only getting Tony Blair elected as leader of the Labour Party, but also getting him elected as Prime Minister of this country. Tony Blair was first introduced to Michael Levy by Israeli embassy political officer Gideon Meir, while Tony Blair was the Shadow Home Secretary of the Labour Party under John Smith. Levy then set about raising funds for Blair and his leadership campaign from key Israel lobbyists like Emmanuel Kay, who was the head of Labour Friends of Israel, and also the chairman of Westfield, Frank Lowy, and Trevor Chin, who now funds David Lammy and Keir Starmer. Simultaneous to fundraising for Tony Blair, Michael Levy was also fundraising for Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak. After Tony Blair entered government with this help from Michael Levy, he then appointed him as an unofficial envoy at the British Foreign Office to the Middle East. And today, that very same individual, Michael Levy, nicknamed Lord Cashpoint because he raised over £100 million for Blair's Labour Party, is today fundraising for Keir Starmer's Labour Party. Following Tony Blair's time as Prime Minister, in which he launched illegal wars against Iraq and Afghanistan, he went on to be a peace envoy to the Middle East, being based inside occupied Palestine. But he had a key conflict of interest which is rarely emphasized. Tony Blair is a patron of the largest settlement building body in Palestine, the JNF. Other patrons of the JNF also include Benjamin Netanyahu and Isaac Herzog, the current president of Israel. In addition to that, Tony Blair's wife, Sherry Blair, also simultaneously served as an ethical advisor to the NSO group, the Israeli intelligence firm which brought us the Pegasus spyware, which was found to have hacked the phones of over 50,000 journalists, activists and political figures, including employees of the British government, reaching close to Boris Johnson. But back to today's Labour Party. Early on in the Gaza genocide, David Lammy, tipped to be the next Foreign Secretary of this country, went to great lengths to spread genocide propaganda against Palestinians. He claimed, unchallenged on Sky News, that Palestinian fighters had babies.
1,300 people dead, murdered, babies.
Not long after delivering that interview, David Lammy received £70,000 from Israel lobbyist Gary Lubner. And not long after registering that donation, David Lammy voted against a ceasefire in Gaza. When Israel represents its political position on the news these days, its official spokesperson is David Mensa. David Mensa was the head of the Labour Friends of Israel. But between being the head of the Labour Friends of Israel and being the official Israeli government spokesman, David Mensa managed communications for David Lammy in his failed 2016 run for London Mayor. Let's not forget that David Lammy has of course also been funded by key Israel lobbyist Trevor Chin. And what about the NHS, they say? Wes Streeting, Labour's shadow health minister, has not only been funded by Israel lobbyist Trevor Chin, he's also had his office costs paid for him by Jonathan Mendelssohn's Red Capital organization, at the same time as Mendelssohn had a role at Europa Healthcare, a private healthcare organization which was benefiting from the privatization of the NHS. But who else is Mendelssohn? Mendelssohn was the leader of the Labour Friends of Israel. So here we have an equation where an organization which is beholden to all types of interests is attempting to convince you that it can somehow fit in your interests to that plethora of interests it serves. What you have to remember about an individual like Keir Starmer is every single one of the progressive-ish sounding policies that he ever had, he has gone back on. You cannot trust a single word that comes out of his mouth. Keir Starmer will betray you. He'll get into positions by claiming that he is the antidote, but essentially he will deepen the very same problems that he claimed he could solve. There is a ray of hope though. You have independents across the country putting themselves forward to hold both the Labour Party and the Conservatives accountable for their crimes, not only against the Palestinians, but against you too. The elections in this country and in the United States will be accompanied by well-fed, cackling hyenas and jackals that try to tell you the lesser of two evils must be your priority. But let's just look at the lesser of those two evils. You have in the Labour Party, as in the Democrats, organizations which are happy to virtue signal and peddle in identity politics while they barely can muster a grimace at the starving of babies, the running over of Palestinians by Israeli tanks, cruelty on an industrial scale, and the destruction of over 80% of infrastructure. There's that choice, and there's the other choice, the racist choice. It's the Trump, it's the Tory party. So essentially, your choice is authoritarianism with a frown or authoritarianism with a smile. Our imagination, much like the people of Gaza, needs to be uncaged. It needs to be liberated. We need a better politics, and we need political systems defined by mass participation. We need the redistribution of political power, not only in this country, but also in the United States.